Get on to the Happy Station, it's Radio Hauraki.
You were the shock to Derek and I when we saw in the Easter edition of the Herald, I think it was, about a couple of entrepreneurs in Auckland about to start a pirate radio station. Derek and I had been doing the same thing, but we'd kept our mouths shut.
Yep.
How did you get tied up with Dave?
Well, I used to go to school with some guys who turned out to be journalists, and Dave, of course, was a journalist, and we got to be sort of drinking buddies back in those days. And so when
David came back from Australia with this idea, he and a friend had been talking about it.
So
he contacted you.
He contacted me because I was the only guy he knew that was in the technical side of radio. Not broadcasting at that time, but...
Caledonia, weren't you?
Yeah, I was...
it was weeks before
beachcombing up there.
We'd heard about you then.
Yeah. I remember you came round to that house that Dave and Wendy were renting in Rahana Street.
That's right,
in
right.
Oahu Bay there.
Yeah.
And we had the big confrontation, you know. Who are these guys? Mexican standoff.
Who are these guys busting us? Who are these smart asses that are actually taking us here?
With these sheaf of papers about what they'd been doing.
Yeah.
But we got on all right.
Oh, I think we made a great team.
A little bit of sparring, and then we settled down.
We had I think, a very good mix of talents, and complemented each other pretty well.
Yeah. One other guy joined us. We'll be talking to him a little later. Nobby.
Yeah.
You and Nobby really hit it off. I mean, as soon as you met.
Nobby was a great guy because Nobby had his feet in the salt water, you know, like myself, and knew what he was about with boats and engines and things like that. So,
he came with a gentleman called Brian Strong from Tauranga. Brian's not here tonight, but he used to panel with him, the breakfast program.
Yeah.
Brian was also a bit of a seafarer too, wasn't he?
Yeah, a bit of a sea dog, old Brian. Yeah.
He was in charge of our pigeons, remember? When the post office said we couldn't contact the Terrys, so we decided we'd send out the news by pigeon post, and some journalist and photographer put it in the Herald. Took it seriously.
What was Brian's connection with pigeons? Had he been involved with pigeon fencing?
He must have been.
Just fancied a pigeon.
Yeah, bird fancier from way back. What's your fondest memory of the early days?
Is this going to be a family show?
Oh, no shit, straight from the shoulder.
I had a few amusing moments.
There must have been some riotous things happen on the boat.
Yeah, I remember a deckhand that we had on the boat who was a bit of a playboy, and Derek and Dave and myself were spending a pleasant evening mucking out the bilges. And we came up for a breather, and we discovered that this deckhand had just smuggled into his cabin the most gorgeous broad that he'd picked up in town. And we all took great exception to this. But he was
not radio, is it?
he was up there enjoying himself, and we were mucking out the bilges, and we were the bloody directors.
Just before or after? What about the toughest time you had on the boat?
Well,
yeah, it would be the toughest, wouldn't it?
No, I think the most hair-raising night...
That was very emotional, but not...
The most hair-raising night was when it blew up a westerly, and it was a very dark, dirty night, and we knew the anchor was dragging. We kept a lookout to see if we could see any surf coming up astern, and we tried to keep a bearing on the Channel Island light. But finally, when dawn came, we were halfway to Cuvier Island. The boat had dragged out through the Colville Channel, and we were well on our way out to South America. In fact, the anchor was hanging straight down, didn't even touch the bottom. And there's so much weight there we couldn't get it up, so we had to cut it free and steam back into Tryphena. That would have been probably the most nerve-wracking night.
Was there ever really enough power from that engine to drive the whole rig with the mast and everything into a headwind like that?
No, with the windage of the mast, it was just hopeless. Very underpowered.
Like a yacht then, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was very much like handling a yacht with a very underpowered auxiliary.
And now, where are you?
Where am
Computers.
Yeah. Well, I decided about 10 years ago that it was where the action was, so I managed to manoeuvre myself a job there.
Do you miss radio? Or miss the early days, anyway?
Well, not really. It was a great experience. And I've dined out on it on many occasions, but I think there's not a lot of technological challenge for engineers in it. I guess there's a few innovations coming, like stereo and things like that, but technically computers are where the innovations are.
They seem to be playing an increasingly more dominant role in radio, certainly with automated radio stations they have in the States, linking with satellites, that sort of thing. So do you think that there may ever be a re-merging of DOC and radio where computers can play that part in New Zealand?
Well, I don't think I'll ever be dedicated to a radio station again. You know, right now I'm involved with maybe 100 different customers. You know, maybe a radio station might just be another customer one day.
But you could never repeat that adventure, could you?
Well, not at my age.